Hey there, this is Creation Images, where I share my in-the-field landscape photography, the skills I've learned over 20 years of hiking and backpacking in the wilderness, as well as the insights and the inspirations that I've received along the way. If you're new here, go ahead and click on the subscribe button and ring the bell below so that you can receive notification every time I come up with a new adventure. Anyway, I hope this video is helpful to you, and I really appreciate you being here, so thanks for watching. Welcome back, everyone. I just want to give you a quick introduction to this video and where I'm going right now.
Actually, at this point in my adventure, I had no idea where this video was going. I'd seen a few waterfalls already, so that's where I started. Good thing too. This has been such a wet spring and there was water everywhere. So I'm going to share with you 3 techniques for shooting water, in particular waterfalls. The addition of water to your compositions allows so much creativity, so as a bonus at the end of the video, I will talk a little bit about reflections and water abstracts. Be sure to stick around until then.
I'm up here in Rocky Mountain National Park on the East Inlet Trail on the west side of the park, and there are several waterfalls on the way in, so I've been stopping to take photos of the waterfalls. The first one is Adams Falls. It's 3/10 of a mile or so from the trailhead, so it's very popular. It was bright sunshine when I got there, nothing really to take photos of. And then I got here to the next falls. I think it has a name, but I'm not really sure what the name of this falls is. And it's got one feature to it that allowed me to take a good photo. So I'm gonna head over there where my tripod is and show you a little bit about how I composed this and how I took this shot. All right, so I'm gonna have to shout so I can be heard. Pretty sure this waterfall is so loud that my camera's having a hard time hearing me talk. But there's a couple of things that I did on this shot that made it work. Otherwise, in a day like this where it's just bluebird skies and bright sunshine, waterfall photography is just not gonna work. So let me tell you about my camera settings and how I set up my composition, and then what I did to make it work. If I took the photo now, it absolutely would not work. So let me show you why. So this is basically the composition that I took. I had the water coming down here in these 2 different flows, kind of silky smooth coming through, with the bridge in the middle, the rock there, and then the upper falls on top. Now when I took this photo a few minutes ago, the sun hadn't come through yet, so there was no light on any of the rocks or the bridge there. And with that light now, there's no way I could get this shot and have it look good. You really want to have it in the shadow so that you don't have harsh, you want to just have even lighting. You don't want to have harsh shadows and harsh sunlight coming through. And in this particular case, I was able to get the shot right before the sun came around that huge boulder, and I was able to get it so that I could slow the shutter speed down and get a nice silky smooth look to the water. Now, the way I was able to do that in this particular case was on my camera. I have a neutral density filter here that is an 8-stop neutral density filter. So I was able to slow the shutter speed down to 1.6 seconds to get that shot, which is what gave it that nice silky smooth effect to it.
You can see how distracting the harsh sunlight is on the left-hand side of the raw file of this composition. But after a little work in Photoshop, the shot comes alive.
All right, that waterfall was so loud over there, I wasn't sure if you could actually hear me or not. So I wanted to share another little trick that I do with waterfall photography, and that's to take a variety of different shutter speeds, all of them slow, so that you can blend those different exposures together and get a different effect of the flowing water going through the scene. And if you just, a lot of people, they'll just take one really slow shutter speed and then you just get this white mass of water coming down and you don't have any texture in there. But by doing a variety of different shutter speeds, you can get a different, just different effects and different amounts of texture in the water depending on how fast the water is moving. In different parts of the waterfall, down in the pools it might be moving slower, up in the middle of the falls it might be moving faster. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those up and on the computer here so you can see what I'm talking about exactly.
Here are 5 different shots of the same composition, but with 5 different shutter speeds. I was easily able to change these shutter speeds by just turning the ring on my variable neutral density filter. My camera was set to aperture priority, so as the sensor had less light, it changed the shutter speed accordingly. I chose 2 of those compositions to blend together in Photoshop, and as you can see, I was able to get a combination of texture and smooth water.
So I'm going to pull up a couple photos now on the computer so I can demonstrate one of the great features of the Canon EOS R6 that I'm shooting with. This morning I went up to try to climb Andrews Peak and failed miserably due to all of this horrible snow and just alternating cliff bands everywhere. But because of that, there was a lot of waterfalls, just little trickles of waterfalls coming down. And I was able to use this R6. It's one of the things it's famous for is its amazing image stabilization. Now, I usually don't like using image stabilization, but I wanted to be able to slow the shutter speed down and get that kind of silky look to the water and give that movement to the water, make sure I didn't just have droplets. And I didn't have my tripod with me, so there wasn't really any way to do that. But with the image stabilization, I was able to shoot these next 2 photos at between a half a second and a quarter of a second, just handheld.
IBIS stands for in-body image stabilization. While your camera is on a tripod, IBIS can cause problems, so I usually have it turned off. But while shooting handheld, it can really save some shots. For this photo, I wasn't too excited about the composition, so I never edited it. This is just the raw file. My goal in taking it was to see how far I could push the IBIS. I went with a really small aperture, f/29, which allowed me to shoot 0.6 of a second. As you can see, the shot is reasonably sharp, no motion blur, and I captured that silky bridal veil effect, all without a tripod.
Now, I was using my trekking pole to balance my camera on, and I held it as still as I possibly could. But handheld, I was still able to get very reasonably sharp images, and I was able to get that smooth kind of bridal veil effect to the waterfalls. So that's a great feature for this Canon R6 camera. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
I was a lot more excited about this composition. It too was handheld using IBIS, this time for 1/13 of a second. This trail led me over more bridges, rivers, and waterfalls than I'd seen in one area before. I was looking forward to setting up camp and shooting more over the next couple of days.
So it's night 1 up here at Lake Verna, and it's about
25 minutes or so before sunset. I spent a couple of hours this afternoon just wandering through this horrible slush, trying to find some good compositions of a rock formation called Aguial del Fleur, I think. I'm trashing that, I'm sure. But anyway, it's so quiet and peaceful this evening, and the clouds rolled in earlier, but it looks like they've all moved out now. So unfortunately, I've just got blue skies. I was hoping to have some clouds up there, but I do have a really cool composition, so let me show that to you. Essentially what I've got here is the a vertical shot. So up at the top we have the peak and then the reflection here in the lake, and coming down into the foreground we have these gnarled branches and trees sticking out there with the mountain kind of framed in the middle there. So let me show you here on the screen. So yeah, you can see the composition there. Right now I'm shooting at f13 just to get a little bit better depth of field. ISO 100, and it's 1/6 of a second, looks like. And I'm shooting with a 15 to 35 millimeter lens, and it looks like I'm at about 18 millimeters to get it all in there. So there's the composition, and I just think, man, if there were just a couple of clouds up there in the sky, it would make it that much better. But as it is, it's really pretty good composition there. We've got the reflection and then the ice here forming still in the lake, which is really cool. So anyway, take that shot. Here is my first creative water photography bonus tip. When shooting reflections, try to find small bodies of water. The bigger the lake, pond, or pool, the harder it will be to get a perfectly still, mirror-like reflection. In this case, even though Lake Verna is a good-sized alpine lake, most of it was still covered in ice. Even though it doesn't look like it, the section of open water shown in this photo was very small. Water compositions are just everywhere, especially with this neutral density filter, which just makes things so creative. You can just play with a lot of different ideas. But this is what I got going on right now. We've got this kind of eddy coming through the river here with these bubbles all along the top. And so I don't know if you can see that here, but I've got the bubbles moving around there. And then when I put the neutral density filter on there and slow it down to about 2 seconds, you can see through the water down into the rocks. You can see the reflections of the trees. You can see the grasses underneath, and then you just have a swirl of the bubbles moving around on the top. Pretty cool. This brings me to bonus tip number 2. Use your neutral density filter to slow water movement down in a way to create unusual patterns. Throw in a Photoshop effect. In this case, I just inverted colors, and you can get truly abstract art. My hike out after 3 days of exploring brought me to dozens of places where I could shoot water under beautifully overcast skies. I was in Waterfall Heaven.
Well, I'm heading down out of the mountains and going home, so I think I'm going to be wrapping up this video. But one thing I've learned while up here is springtime high up in the Rockies gives you lots of wet, slushy, sloppy mud. I know why they call it mud season, but what it also gives you is a lot of solitude in a place like Rocky Mountain National Park, where solitude can be hard to find. And it also gives you lots and lots of water. So I was able to capture, I think, a lot of really good waterfall compositions, reflection compositions. I have to say, if there's one thing that you're going to want to do if you get into waterfall photography, is invest in a good neutral density filter. So I hope that helps, and I will see you next time. Thanks for being here.